All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you live this evening to recap the Rams' win over the Carolina Panthers in the NFC wildcard round. Jake, we won. We both thought we were going to win, but we didn't necessarily think the game was going to go like it did. So we're going to talk about that. But you know what, Jake? A win is a win. We're feeling good. We're riding that high, going to the divisional round of the playoffs against Chicago, which we are going to have another episode to talk about. But this episode specifically, we're going to try and cover kind of what went down in the Panthers game, stuff we liked, stuff we didn't like, events of the game, how things transpired, some news here and there. But Jake, this game in Carolina, I mean, it was a battle in a weekend full of battles, by the way. 4 out of the 5 wildcard round games pretty much went down to like the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. There's a stat somewhere out there that I'm sure I could pull up. But I mean, we had a good weekend. If you're a football fan and you were watching these games, this was a really entertaining weekend. Really, really intense battles, and the Rams kicked it off. The Rams were the first playoff game of the weekend, and it was back and forth with lead changes. We'd score, Carolina would score, we'd score, Carolina would come back. Thankfully, the Rams were able to lock in the last 10 minutes of the game and come away with the W. But Jake, when I watched this game, I just kept thinking, like, how is this happening? Like, just give me something to be comfortable about. Every time that I would get comfortable, Carolina would come back in and then they would score, right? And then I'd be like, okay, this could be it. Our season could be over. And then it started to look like at the beginning of the fourth quarter, it was like, well, this could be it. You know, it felt like Carolina had gained momentum, right? And then all of a sudden things start to shift. The Rams start to come back. They're able to pull off a win. But Jake, what was your overall impression of this game?
Yeah, it was way too close for comfort. And I said this on a show before the game, and I said, look, guys, if this game's close, you got to just take the win. Yeah, like I understand it's going to be tough. You're going to be annoyed. You look at the Panthers as they're inferior. The Panthers are just a weird team when it comes to the Rams. I think we kind of saw the future of Sean McVay in this NFL league. And what I mean by that is Ejiro Evero was on his staff, and that defense was ready to stop Sean McVay. You see, Matt LaFleur over with the Packers. I know they're trying to work out a deal. The Rams have not beaten the Packers since Matt LaFleur took over. The Bengals, the last time they faced the Rams, I know they lost in the Super Bowl, still a close game. They lost to Zach Taylor's Bengals, right? So there are McVay disciples around the league, and we're probably going to see more. Mike LaFleur's interviewing for coaching jobs. Chris Shula is interviewing. Nate Scheelhaas is interviewing. Like, this is kind of going to be the norm. You're going to see a lot of teams around the league that know what you're doing. So it's going to unfortunately mean Sean McVay, like he had to do when, Vic Fangio and Bill Belichick kind of wrote the book on how to stop his offense, and then he had to kind of switch things up, and Jared Goff couldn't do it, and so he moved on to Matthew Stafford. He's going to have to make similar adjustments because, I mean, how many times in that game did Evero and that defense look ready to stop the Rams? I mean, and to be fair, Alexis, I don't think this game is as close if Stafford doesn't jam his finger. I think that did impact him. And of course, luckily at the end of the game, it didn't matter. He was just able to overcome that. So I'm not ignorant to the fact that Stafford hurting his finger after he went 6 for 6 or 7 for 7 or whatever. Then he missed like 8 or 9 straight throws. I think that's definitely fair to bring up. But at the same time, you just got to tip your cap. Carolina definitely has the Rams number to a degree where this is going to be a close bout. And yeah, Dave Canales, his first ever game, coaching in the postseason. And I was really impressed with, the game he called for Bryce Young. I was impressed with Bryce Young, his first ever postseason game. He stepped up, and I know he had an interception that was tipped, but he made some really big plays and put them in a position to win this game, despite the fact they didn't really have much of a run game. I mean, I know Chuba scored 2 touchdowns and Bryce Young ran for 1, but, they didn't really have, a run game in this one. The Rams really shut it down. So yeah, Alexis, I mean, I think it was way too close for comfort, but it's one of those things there are going to be those teams out there that just have your number. They're just weird games for whatever reason. Carolina, for whatever reason, dominates the Falcons. Like, it's a running gag how dominant Bryce Young is against the Falcons. Like, they won 30-0 earlier in the year. That said, like, are the Falcons maybe even a better team than Carolina? I think it's possible. But that matchup, they just don't match up well. And I think the Rams, they just had to escape because they didn't match up well. And it's not something you and I or anybody really should have expected coming into this game. It's something you just kind of let the Carolina Panthers prove. And they proved themselves that, look, this is not an easy matchup. And they just have the Rams number, or at least, enough of it where those games are going to be close ultimately. And it's a good thing the Rams came out on top. And why did the Rams come out on top? Because the Rams, when they had to have it, had the big time touchdown, and Matthew Stafford, there's no better quarterback in the NFL, came through in a big way. I know he had the interception. It was a bad, ill-advised throw. But that touchdown pass is a perfectly placed touchdown pass to Colby Parkinson. And who would have thought when we interviewed Colby Parkinson coming out of Stanford, he'd be sending the Rams to the divisional round of the playoffs? How many years later? I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it like that.
Yeah. No, and if everyone in the chat, let me know if I have connection issues. I think I might, unfortunately, at the moment. But Jake, you bring up a good point, and I said this online as well. I'm not gonna pretend that game, the Rams played to their standard against Carolina. I think we agree on that. It wasn't. There's a lot about the game that just was subpar. Wasn't their best football. We know what this team is capable of. We know what they're able to do. And so, I had a lot of people kind of me shit in my mentions and about how the Rams are playing. And I'm like, I can acknowledge that. I have no acknowledging that was not the Rams' best football. But I do think that credit should be given to Carolina as well. I think that, like you touched on, Carolina had some things figured out. They were able to, I think, make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable at times, of course, finger or not. I mean, they were able to contain the run game a little bit better than I thought they would. I also felt like the Rams moved away from the run game in a way that I didn't love. They get as good of a rhythm as I wanted them to, but I also thought that Carolina's defense was able to kind of snuff that out a little bit and shut that down. But Jake, in a close game like this against Carolina, I think it's fair for Rams fans who are, I don't want to say dooming, but they're like, oh, well, if you're going to play that close against the Carolina Panthers, what are you going to do against X team? What are you going to do against Y team? And you know what? My answer is you take it a game at a time. And again, we're not going to talk about Chicago this episode. We're just talking about kind of the storylines against Carolina. But at the end of the day, I think, and again, a win is a win, and you do what you have to do to get the win. So you don't come out, you don't play your best football, things aren't going your way, you're not having the best game. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, right? Because you have that drive to Kyren Williams, right? The Kyren Williams touchdown. Then you go back out, and then you have that touchdown of Colby Parkinson, and that's what matters. At the end of the day, it matters that you win. It's the same thing in the Super Bowl. You just have to win. But I do understand people that are rated by some of those plays that the Rams did, some of those calls that we performed at times, but overall I think the storyline of this game was just about overcoming adversity, and the Panthers were a worthy opponent. I think people have really probably slept on that team. I think people were probably a little bit unfair to that team going into this game, but yeah, and I'm seeing that I'm freezing, so I'll hand the metaphorical mic back over to you. But I'm seeing in the chat that my audio is freezing, so.
I feel bad when that happens. Yeah, I mean, Alexis, I agree with you. I think the Panthers proved their worth. That's all you got to ask for. If you're going to come in to this playoffs 8-9 over, a Lions team that I think would have been a really good playoff team, would have showed up and actually gave us a fun matchup, then you have to show up. And I thought they did a nice job of that. I thought they, defended their home field. And, for a second there, they were up with 2 minutes to go. A lot of teams were. They ended up falling victim to that They'll have too much time on the clock for Stafford. Ironically, the blocked punt might have actually saved the Rams because it shortened the field and Carolina really couldn't run out the clock because of how short the field was now. That said, no idea what Tanner Engel was doing. I mean, he's been great on special teams, catapulted the guy and got it blocked. Yeah, I don't know. There were a lot of people complaining about the officiating. What I would say to that is I think the Rams have just been taking some really bad penalties lately. I don't think it has anything to do with Puka Nacua. I don't think it's anything like that because I know people bring up Puka Nacua on the live stream calling out the refs. Now I don't even think it's that. I mean, you watch like Xavier Smith is lined up over the football. Like, Devontae Adams hasn't played in 3 games, jumps off sides. I thought the Rams have just lately, they've been kind of open and susceptible to getting penalties thrown on them a little bit more. And I think that's why we've seen that. So these are mistakes that can't happen, and hopefully, it gets cleaned up, and I think it will. But to your point, this is a completely different game, okay? The idea that you're going to hold the Rams, you're going to hold this win against the Rams because it was the Panthers. Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather be the Rams who barely beat the Carolina Panthers? Or would you rather be that rough, tough Saints team that lost to a 7-9 Seahawks team? Like, what team would you rather be? Sometimes you just have to find a way to win. And teams that had, to this point, by the way, teams that had a negative point differential going into the playoffs were 3-0 in the first round. And Carolina almost made that 4-0. The Rams were able to overcome that. So now they'll move on to the divisional round where it's a completely different, game. It's a different slate. I mean, I know people were talking about the Bears. I saw Bears fans posting highlights from the last game that they played. It's like Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp didn't even play in that game, and they lost 24-18. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. The thing that I would take away from this game is that Matthew Stafford is the MVP of the league. Shocker to nobody. The run game needs to be utilized more. You can't just have 24 carries in a game this close. Puka Nacua is the best damn offensive player in football. He is unreal. And call me crazy, don't feel like the Rams use him enough. Like, I'm sitting there, Puka had 18 targets, and I still feel like they didn't use him enough. And I felt like on that 4th down, people were complaining about going for it on 4th down instead of kicking the field goal to go up 20 to whatever. I think it was 20-7 at the time. Or 20-3. So I understand how people are, or no, 20-7. I understand how people were upset about that. I had no issue with going for it on 4th down. I had an issue with the play call. The reason I had an issue with the play call is because and you actually sent it to me. You had people on Twitter getting on Kyron for missing a block. Well, Dedich literally didn't block anybody on that play, like at all. Like, I don't even know what he was doing. And then furthermore, so Dedich doesn't block anybody. Kyron, by the way, chauffeurs the guy out of the way so Stafford can actually move over to the right. But that was my issue. It was like Sean, and we can talk about this, and I think we can get into detail on this because I know you have a lot of thoughts on this too. When you have a 3rd and short and you have a 4th and short, you do have a chance to capitalize and roll the dice and, place your bets on green, at the roulette table. You can go for that big play. But that big play is also a low percentage shot. So rolling the dice doesn't always pay off. Doing it on 3rd down, if you're going to go for it on 4th down, fine. But when you do it on 4th down, that makes me annoyed. And I felt like that 4th down call was kind of an encapsulation of what this game was. There were plenty of times where the Rams and Sean McVay, just could have just gone for it. The 3rd down, just, throw it past the sticks. And they're like, let's throw a bomb here. So then now everyone's talking about how Stafford misses Devontae Adams on that one play, but they're not talking about the fact that it's 3rd and 2 in their own territory, and Stafford just threw a bomb to Devontae Adams when they only needed 3 yards. So that's the thing. I think that 4th down call bothered me because that's Sean McVay trying to find a way to score a touchdown on 4th down when their offense is already good enough that you could just go down the field, keep getting your first downs, and score. This is one of the best red zone teams in the league. I wasn't worried. If they got the first down, I wasn't like, oh, crap, we're not going to be able to score. No. get the first down. And so I think there are times where McVay tries to get a little too cute and creative and like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go deep down the field here. They won't suspect it. Well, they did, because they do this on fourth down, that failed fourth down there, right? You have a momentum change, because if you just kick the field goal, to be fair, you keep the momentum going. When you're on the road, take the points, right? But I had no issue with them going for on fourth down. I had an issue with the fact that Puka Nacua is on the left side when Stafford is looking to the right. When he's rolling to the right, why is Puka on the left side? Puka's open, by the way. Why is he just a decoy on this specific play? It felt to me like Sean was trying to draw this thing up, so he's going to get the defense to go underneath and shut down Puka and shut down Tyler Higbee underneath, and then it's going to open up a door for somebody to be open in the end zone. And while I appreciate the creativity, I just feel like you got to read the room, you got to read the game and see that if you just get the first down, this team can't be stopped. Like, you have to assume in the red zone, you have Devontae Adams now. Like, you're just going to be able to score. They're a 70% red zone team. It just makes it tougher when you start having this probability thing going on and you're going to take the big shot down the field. That's a low percentage shot of happening. So that's, I think, the biggest thing for me. But what say you? Because I did see you tweet about this, like going for the big plays and everything. I know they have them in their arsenal. I know that. But on a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, I want it to stop.
I'm in agreement with you on that. I don't understand why you call low percentage plays in that situation. You know, like, to your point, it just feels like going for the flashy play. And I think that's kind of been a knock on Sean his entire career. Why do you keep doing these like low percentage passing plays when you're not running the ball? And he's been better at running the ball ish since he's had Kyren Williams, obviously, as we know, we've seen in the past couple years. I think he's kind of tried to balance out the game a little bit more. But like one of my biggest issues with the offense that game is you had Kyren Williams in the first half averaging 5.3 yards a carry. Yeah. And then they did the same thing that they always do. They stop using Kyren Williams in the run game, and you're sitting there going like, what are you doing? He goes and he rips a 6-yard run. He rips a 5-yard run. And I'm sitting there, and it's almost like when you watch in real time what's happening is like McVay gets bored. It's like he doesn't, like, you can run the ball and keep getting down 5 yards, 5-yard runs, 5-yard runs, and you're sitting, and then all of a sudden he abandons it, and I'm going, I'd run the ball every play if I have a running back that's averaging 5.3 yards a carry, and I just run the ball down the field, right? And so that was my issue, is like, then you start to see, the offense going out, punting, and you're not running the ball one time in an offensive drive, and I'm just sitting there going like, what are you doing? At halftime, when Kyren Williams had 5.3 yards a carry, and then to start the second half, they didn't even run the ball with him. That's frustrating to me, and we can talk about that. I do not like what they've been doing with the run. They've completely just, I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I know that they're trying to do 1A, 1B, but my opinion, and I've been very vocal about this, the 1A, 1B system is not it. It actually hasn't been working. They had a couple weeks where it was working really well, and it just isn't working the same way anymore. You're also just not utilizing the run game as much anymore. So for a team that was making like news for how well they were doing in the run game for several weeks, to then completely just like mishandle it seems to be an issue, especially, and again, we'll talk about Chicago next episode, but when you're going against Chicago, who you're going to need to utilize the run, because they have a very poor run defense, I would like them to utilize the run game more. So I know that you have thoughts on this too. So before I can move on, I'll let you give your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are this. I think Kyron's the better back. I don't think it's that close, at least not yet for Blake Corum. I think a lot of what Blake Corum does piggybacks off of how Kyron sets up a defense, how what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of, wears them down. That's what I'm looking for. He wears them down. because he, look, the start of the season, he wasn't the same running back, and it's because he just added all that weight and he had to learn how to run with that body. And now he has learned to run with that body, and we're starting to see like, okay, this is a really good running back. As far as after contact, good Lord, I cannot speak right now. After contact, he is 8th in the league at yards after contact. Okay. He's only behind Javonte Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, James Cook, Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, and Jonathan Taylor. Yards after contact per attempt, like he's right up there. So my point here is that Kyren is a battering ram. He's breaking tackles. He's wearing down a defense. And then Blake can come in and he can have that, outside zone run, the stretch runs. And now it's like you zig, I zag type of stuff. And it keeps you on your toes. And now, you can take advantage of that. My biggest issue with the way they utilize the running backs, it's very simply put, this team just continues to do this taking turns thing. Don't give the running backs a whole drive. It's dumb. It's stupid. And it's not actually equal. Because like what ends up happening is you give, it's every other, right? So if Blake Corum gets the first drive and Kyler gets the second drive, well, here's the problem when you're so set in your ways that you're going to do it that way. Blake Corum can start the drive at the 25-yard line. He gets 75 yards. Kyren Williams can start a drive after they just had a pick and they're at the 20. So he's not in the next drive. Now Blake Corum has a full field and Kyren just was on the short field. That's my issue, and we're seeing that. This is consistent. Yeah. This is the issue, is that late in games, when the Rams know they need something, who's in there? It's 23. Kyren's the better pass protector. He's the better receiver, and he's the better overall running back. And so while I like Blake Corum, and I think it's nice to have both, like, I don't think it's really close. I think Kyren is getting skimped out of carries, and I think it's hurting you. And, as the game went on, like Blake ended up making that respectable, the yards per carry average. But at the same time, like he was off to a rough start in the first half, and it's like, man, Kyren's averaging 5.3 yards per carry. Why did he stop getting the football? Kyren ends up getting 4.4 and Blake gets 4.1. But, like, I just don't understand, why are we only running the ball 24 times in a game that was really close the entire second half? And that's really the issue. And you also, I see in the comment section, you paid Kyren Williams. Like, Blake is on a rookie deal. So, like, while I like Blake and I think he deserves, like, some carries, I don't really like this 50-50 split, and I really don't like taking turns. I understand you want to keep Kyren's carries at bay and you want to keep him healthy, and I get that. There's an actual argument to that, because to be fair, Alexis, this man touched the football more than any Ram in NFL history when you combined the postseason. That's not named Eric Dickerson. So we have to get that out of the way right now and understand the fact that Kyren Williams carried the ball a ton last year, carried and caught, and he's pass protecting, so he's taking on more wear and tear. So that could be a lot of it, and they're trying to protect their asset. But don't go as far as protect your asset in a winner-take-all game, a winner-go-home game, right? That you can't have that. I need the best player on the field, and Kyren Williams is the best player on the field when it comes to those two. Blake is good. Blake's not bad. But this idea that we're going to take turns each drive, it actually doesn't end up working out the way the Rams are hoping. It ends up with Blake getting more carries than Kyren in certain games, and Kyren getting more carries than Blake. It's not 50-50. So the point being is the better, more productive running back, which when you watch down in and down out, it's Kyren, he should be getting the ball at least 60-40. And also, don't be afraid to be like, yeah, this drive, Kyren's ripping it up, and, he wasn't supposed to be in, but Blake came out, had to get his helmet adjusted or whatever on a play. Kyren has a 20-yard run. Are you taking Kyren out because we have to play taking turns with Blake? See, that's my issue, is that I just don't think it's conducive to a winning running game. I just don't. And I think that when you look at this offense, when they get Kevin Dotson back, they're going to be very successful. But I think they got to be cautious about how they do this 50-50 thing because you got to get Kyron going before you get Blake going. That's how I've seen it. That's what the tape shows. Blake really starts getting going, and he could have more yards, and he could be more explosive because he's the one that lost the weight, and Kyron gained the weight, and so that's how you do it. But you have to get it started. The table has to be set before Blake even, can really get in and do something. And I think that's something that's kind of lost on people when they're like, they act like, oh, we don't need Kyron. Blake's our guy. It's like, no, Blake is playing off of Kyron. Kyron's not really playing off of Blake. Kyron could be in there for 30 carries and he's going to do his job. But Blake is really playing off of Kyron because Kyron's strengths set up Blake, because then you have a defense that's worn down. You have a defense that is leaning. And now when they're leaning, or like I said, if they zig, you zag. You hit Blake Corum up and, he rips up a 30-yard run because they're just not ready for it. So that's just really where I'm at this point. I don't really think it's remotely close. Kyron's clearly the better back, and Blake doesn't pass protect anywhere near as well as Kyron. And the Rams tell you this because every single close game late in the game, 23 is in and not 22. So it's not really just my opinion, it's the Rams' opinion. And I'm always told to trust in Sean McVay and the coaching staff. Well, guess who's in late in the games? It's always Kyron. So last thing I'll say about this that irked me about the run game. Did you see how much success they had when they were running out of 13 personnel? Why did they barely run out of 13 personnel? When they ran out of 13 personnel, they had a lot of success. They also had a lot of success when they ran 13 personnel, but they only did that about 30% of the time. And I just don't understand for a defense that gave up over 1,000 yards against tight ends this year, as we talked about in our preview. Higbee had 3 targets. Colby Parkinson had 3 targets. I mean, we're talking about a tight end room that has about 10 receptions a game, and they had 4. So I don't know. There was things about this game. I think Sean McVay got really panic play call happy, where it felt like when things started to look like they were, making a punch back, or you got dazed like in a boxing match, right? You're dominating the fight, and all of a sudden kind of the underdog throws a little jab, kind of catches you by surprise. And then, it's the whole, oh, wow, like I'm dazed. And then you start clinching. It just felt like Sean McVay, instead of the clinching and kind of like slowing things down and maybe adjusting, was like, oh crap, now I just got to start swinging like haymakers. And that was what I saw. I mean, you're having Matthew Stafford, who at this point is dealing with a finger injury. You're abandoning the run, and now you're throwing these low percentage throws deep down the field to Devontae Adams, who hasn't played in 3 games. Puka Nacua, who, he's being guarded by 3 guys at that point. That was my biggest issue, because I felt like the Rams, had they just done the whole clinching and just like taken a beat and just played their style of football, they could have run the Panthers out of the stadium. They had opportunities to do that, but you got to credit Carolina for sticking with it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with your comments on the run game, as people talked about that, as well. 13 personnel. It just feels like they need to slow the game down in a weird way. Like they just, it feels like they get way too, what dramatic play can we call now, right? And it really, when the chunk plays are working for you, when the 4-yard run and then the 6-yard runs are working for you, for whatever reason, McVay does not like to stick with that. He's not going to be the coach that's going to go out and run the ball down the field the entire time, even if it's working. That's something that I think we just know as fans, and it's not something that you necessarily need to do, but in the playoffs, you want to get there. And again, Chicago, if that's what it takes, and it might be that, that's what you want to do, and we'll talk about it. But Jake, I do want to talk about the defense.
Yeah.
Because I saw some good things this game, saw some not good things. I want to talk about the pass rush, because Jake, did it not feel to you that the pass rush in the first 3 quarters of the game and then the 4th quarter were 2 completely different defenses? Did it they had their moments, but I think it's so funny when everyone wants to complain about the pass rush. I'm like, did you watch the end of the game? Against what they did to Bryce Young, for all these people that are they're not capable of rushing the passer and all these, I'm like, well, fine, say what you want, but in the biggest moment of the game, I mean, that made or made or broke the game against Carolina. But I want to talk about the pass rush because I think one of the biggest criticisms that this defense gets is rushing the quarterback.
Yeah, I think I'll just say it like this. There were a lot of people that were calling out Jared Verse. I don't know why. Jared Verse had 7 pressures in this game. Okay. Like, the Rams had 35 on Bryce Young. I don't know how in 2026, I have to say it over and over again, pressures matter. Like, it's, I understand sacks help, but it's hard to sack a mobile quarterback like that. It's just hard. My biggest complaint about the pass rush is this. It really comes down to this, okay? I really think Chris Shula gets way too stunt happy. Like, that stunt, I want to bring that up. Byron Young's stunt when they're almost, like, they're right in near the goal line. Why is he stunting there? Because now you're wondering why Bryce Young just ran for a free touchdown? Because Byron Young wasn't there. No one was there. When you try these stunts, you get chaotic. I've seen so many times this year. By the way, they were dominant last year with the stunts. They were. But I saw last year, these stunts were knocking guys on their ass. Or this year. Last year, they were great. This year, it's like Jared Verse is in the middle of a one-on-one and Byron Young knocks him down. It's just there's too much chaos. And if you have too much chaos and it's not controlled aggression, well, what's going to happen? Well, it's very clear what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that now that guy that had leverage and had a chance to win his matchup and get after the quarterback has now been taken out of the play. And we've now seen this multiple times this year where you just have too much chaos up front and it's actually causing, it's a mess. And now guys aren't getting to the quarterback. I'm not saying this happens every time, Alexis, but I have noticed this. So I do think that's an issue. But this team, when they had to have it, they were insane with the pressure on that last drive. 0 for 4. The Carolina Panthers went. They did not get a yard, as Sean McVay put it. So I just think, simply put, the pressure is going to get there. I said it before, we got into the playoffs. I said, look, it's been disappointing to a degree. I think this pass rush should be better, but I think they're going to get up for the playoffs. They may have overlooked them in week 13. They're not going to overlook them in the wild card. And 35 pressures is diabolical. They did not overlook them in the wild card. For comparison's sake, Carolina had 18. They had 18 pressures. Okay? 18. The Rams had 35. Seattle had 15 the last time they saw Carolina. That game that we all just kind of assumed Seattle dominated, yeah, they had 15 pressures in that game. So the Rams should feel very good about this performance. They should feel very good about the defense. They should feel very good, defensive front. They should feel very good about their ability to put pressure on the quarterback, and I believe that is only going to continue. Now, Chicago, very, very good offensive line. Seattle, decent offensive line. The 49ers, good offensive line. So regardless of who they play the rest of the way, they're going to be going up against good players. But guess what? The Rams have good players too, and we've seen it. So as far as that's concerned, I have no issue with the pass rush through the first week of the playoffs. That could change. But right now, my biggest concern is that if I'm being picky, the Rams don't have a number 3 receiver that I truly trust, that they truly trust. The Rams have the run game thing that we talked about. The panic play calling anytime there's any sort of sign of getting punched back. And on the defensive side, it's the cornerback room. It's the safety room. I don't think those guys have been playing all that well lately. Cam Curl gave up a touchdown. Love Cam. Interviewed Cam. Gave up a touchdown. Key touchdown in that game. That could have been the last play he ever played for the Rams, to be honest with you. He's going to be a free agent in the offseason. Do they bring him back? I don't know. That could have been it. If the Rams didn't score, that's the game-winning touchdown. So he's been struggling. Cam Kinchins has been struggling. Cam Curl's played really well in the run game, and so has Kinchins. But in coverage, it's been a little mixed bag there. I'm so out, and I don't care what anyone says. I'm so out on Kobe Turner. Or not Kobe Turner, Kobe Durant. I'm so out on Kobe Durant. I don't think he's a terrible football player. I don't. And I like him. I do. But I am not starting him this Sunday. I'm not doing it. I'll tell you exactly who I would start. Emmanuel Forbes, who, by the way, all the shit he gets, he played pretty damn well considering the last time you saw this team, they roasted him. Okay? So say what you will. He gave up 3 catches for 26 yards. You'll take that. That was against Tedero and McMillan, and we'll take that. Then you lose Akello for the year, which really sucks. So you got Kobe. You got Darius, who wasn't even active. Neither was Darian Kendrick. But you know who actually stood out to me? Very limited opportunities, Alexis. But Roger McCreary. His ability on the outside, which is underrated. People act like he can't play on the outside despite the fact he's about the same size as Kobe Durant. And then they tell you that he can't play in the slot. It's like, well, anyway. Roger McCreary can play on the outside. And I'd be the first one to tell you if I'm deciding who plays on Sunday, I'd have Forbes and McCreary on the outside on Sunday. I would bench Kobe Durant, and I would make sure Darius Williams is active in case I need him, and Darian Kendrick. That's what I would do. Because I think Durant gets away with a lot because he is a guy that comes down with the football. He's had interceptions. He's had tip drill interceptions. That's what keeps him on the field. The Rams like that. And I can't blame them to that regard. But he's gotten bailed out quite a few times this year. Bad passes where he's given up a guy wide open, or, say he doesn't end up giving up like a 40, 50-yard play because it gets, nullified because it's a penalty. So there have been a few instances of that. And some would say, okay, he only gave up 3 catches on 7 targets, but he gave up 88 yards. He gave up 31 yards after the catch on Jalen Coker. He gave up a 52-yarder to Jalen Coker. And he gave up 3 first downs. And yeah, I think Durant has his moments where you're like, wow, he has a chance to be really good. And then he has his moments where it's like, wow, he's kind of getting destroyed. And I don't know, maybe I'm being hard on him. You tell me, Alexis, but I would go with McCreary and I would go with Forbes to start this game. And you could always rotate, but that's how I would start the game.
I don't entirely disagree with you about Kobe Durant. I don't think that he's looked very good, but I mean, obviously interception, great. In coverage, he hasn't been great. I liked what I saw out of McCreary from what I've seen. I think in terms of starting, I'm not sure. It's a little. I'd be a little nervous to maybe start McCreary against Chicago. I do think he should get more playing time. I do think. Well, I don't think I know. What we've seen out of the secondary has been very worrisome. We don't. And I'll just speak in my opinion. There's no corner on the Ram team that true corner one. I just don't think we have one. I think we have all of these guys that are okay that you can kind of mix and match, and who, one game you might have Emmanuel Forbes has a really good game, and then the other maybe it's Durant, and then the other it's like Darius Williams. But you don't have anybody that's super consistent in the secondary, and it's something that the Rams have to address, I think, whenever the off season is. And so it makes for a lot of games where you see our corners getting beat a lot. All of them. I mean, they've all had games where they've just absolutely looked terrible in coverage. I still don't know particularly why sometimes schematically we are giving so much room to receivers. I thought they were a little bit better against Carolina, but I still feel like you watch these plays where you're playing 20 yards, 10 yards off your guy, and you're sitting there going like, why are we letting them have all this room? Is it because they don't trust the secondary to not get burned, or are you trying to keep them in front of you? Like, that's what you have to imagine it is. But it's not fun to watch this Rams secondary in the way that we've seen even recently, Kinchins and Curl, right? The 2 cams. They've had a lot of really fun moments since they've been starting back there. I mean, Cam Curl is one of my favorite tacklers in the league. I think for a lot of people, love watching him hit. Same with Kinchins, but for whatever reason, there just has really, for most of the season, that secondary has not been able to find a rhythm. And I think it is because we have this game of musical chairs going on at corner, and it's like they can't seem to figure it out. And now we've got Kello who's injured and he's out for the rest of the playoffs. So you're taking a corner room that is already not super consistent, and now you're throwing an injury into there. I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, the Rams are going to go out and sign, Stephen Gilmore or whatever, whoever that you're saying. I don't think that the Rams will sign anybody, if I'm being honest. I really don't.
I don't either.
So I think that we have what we have. And so some people might be terrified by that. Other people might be confident in that. I, for one, don't feel great. I think the weakness of this defense right now is the secondary. I don't think it's a pass rush. I think that you've got a very complicated situation going on in your secondary, and when you play some better teams in Carolina, I am nervous about that. So, Jake, I don't think that what's going on right now in the Rams secondary is good enough, unfortunately. And I think that could potentially set the Rams up for some not good games. But, the McCreary option is interesting. I mean, right? The Rams went out and got him. So I think they should use him. If he started against the Bears and played well, I'd be ecstatic. So we'll see. I hope that you're right about that. But whatever it is that the Rams decide to do, I just think, you can't keep having these games where like a Bryce Young goes out there and dices your secondary up. I mean, it just can't happen. Somebody's going to have to step up. And, I'm going to put a bet. I think if any corner right now on that Rams secondary steps up, I think it's going to be Emmanuel Forbes.
I think so too. When the lights are bright for Emmanuel Forbes, it seems like he's really stepped up. Yeah. You go back, I mean, the Falcons game, how did he look in that game? I thought he looked pretty good. I mean, I thought both corners were really good. I think that was
the one. I think the thing with Forbes is like, and it's the issue that the Rams corners have had all season is nobody seems to like put together like 2 to 3 solid games. So it's like you have Forbes will go out, he'll have a great game. Then, Durant looks really good at game. Like, so Forbes, it's like he'll have a game where he's really good, and then he'll have a game where he just keeps getting burned. And you're like, why? Who's going to be the corner that just goes out there in every single game, super consistent? That's what I think the Rams need.
I mean, I think Emmanuel Forbes might have played the best game for a corner all season against Tampa. That's the crazy thing about him, is that he was targeted 8 times that game. He did not give up a catch, and he had 5 pass breakups, and he had an interception. Like, he was utterly insane. So that was in prime time, and there's a good chance. I mean, I think we're going to see the 6:30 game. I mean, I could be wrong. I guess if the Steelers win, the NFL might want Steelers-Patriots on at the prime time. Right now, the Steelers are up 3-0 and just forced a fumble on C.J. Stroud. So we'll see. But yeah, it's weird, man. I kind of trust Forbes, and he's the one I didn't trust. He's the one like I had no data on because he had never started a playoff game before. He was pretty solid against the Panthers. So yeah, I kind of think Forbes is the one that I trust the most right now. And I that's not necessarily a great thing, but I mean, I guess we'll see. As far as the rest of the team, I thought Quentin Lake, just his presence. Yeah. Was he perfect? No. Does he have some things to clean up? Yes. But he's also been out since week 11. Like, give the guy a break. He forced a huge 4th down incompletion. I mean, he made that play. That was huge. That set the tone early on. And then the tipped ball that ends up being an interception by Kobe Durant. There were just moments in this game where you just felt like Quentin Lake was literally what they've been missing. And they're probably the number 1 seed if he doesn't get hurt. I mean, that's just the reality of it. They're probably the number 1 seed if he doesn't get hurt. They really missed him. And you saw that full well. And give Carolina credit because they went after Quentin Lake. They were like, look, this guy just came back. Yeah, we're going to go after him. Quentin Lake, by the way, played every single snap, 67 of them. So the Rams were like, we're throwing you right into the fire right away. So I liked what I saw from Quentin Lake. I think it's a lot to build off. We'll see what ends up happening. And yeah, I'm excited. But any thoughts, final thoughts on the game?
You know, just in closing, kind of what I said at the beginning, I understand all the scrutiny that the Rams got for winning this game. I don't think, the Rams are above criticism in any way. I don't think that they are remotely close talent wise to the Carolina Panthers. I think on paper, I think from what we've seen this season, the Rams are a much better team than Carolina. But, you have to give Carolina credit. It's the playoffs. They made the playoffs. That division that they were in was very, a very weird division in the NFL. This season, and Carolina beat us in the regular season, fair and square. I mean, we looked awful, and going into this game, it's not surprising that the Rams struggled again against Carolina. I don't think that, I think that the Rams have a lot to clean up, because I think if they play how they played against Carolina, against Chicago, they're not going to win that game, and they know that. That's not like a bold statement, but I think that a lot of people are being maybe a little bit unfair to the Rams about how close this game was. I think the criticism is deserved, but at the end of the day, it's a playoff game. Like, anything can happen. Like you just said, the Steelers score. Like, in theory, the Texans should be blowing out the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers are up 3-0 right now. We're not watching the game because we're doing this, so I don't know what's going on play by play, but like anybody can. So I give Carolina credit. I thought that they did a really good job. I think that the Rams obviously have stuff that they're going to have to clean up that we talked about. But Jake, let's get into some supers.
Yeah, absolutely. SoCal, thank you for the 5. I was left disappointed with the game. Had they played someone else, they would have lost. See, like, appreciate the super, and I understand your disappointment. I just don't necessarily agree with that. Played someone else, they would have lost. Because I'm like, well, if they played the Eagles, would they have lost? I mean, I don't think that offense can score. So, and sure enough, I told you guys, the 49ers are going to win. But like, I don't like that. I don't like retrofitting a game into another game. I think you play your scenario, you play your situation, and that's that. I don't think what they did against the Panthers, like, because I think some things would have translated. I think some things that the Panthers took away in that game would have worked against other teams. But I also think some things that worked against the Panthers wouldn't have worked with other teams. That is the beauty of matchups. That's the beauty of every game being different. And then Caleb is more dangerous than Young. I totally agree. And Tutu not playing is so bad. I also agree with that. I don't understand how you pay $10 million to a receiver and just have no plan of attack for him whatsoever. I mean, I get it because you never had a plan of attack for him since you drafted him. We still have no idea why you drafted him, because you drafted him over Creed Humphrey and you actually had a need at center. And I love Tutu Atwell, but I'll be the first one to tell you I have no idea what they were thinking with that pick. And I still, to this day, have no idea what they were thinking with Tutu Atwell. Hopefully he catches on somewhere and he's actually utilized, because I think he can be absolute stud. I think he could be like Marquise Brown, before he started having all those injuries. So that's how I feel. But SoCal, appreciate you. And then just wants to say, love y'all, by the way. Appreciate you, SoCal.
Appreciate supers.
Zaylor, thank you for the 2. Literally, like, my favorite name by far. Zaylor Swift. And then the cat with the fade kills me every time. Is Whittington out again? I don't know. That's a good question. That's one player that Sean McVay didn't really mention, so not really sure on that end. I guess we'll find out hopefully within the next couple days. And then Zaylor Swift is back at it with the 5. Appreciate you. We got a lot off Michigan players. Corum and Kyron going downhill. Chew some clock. Need versus Stewart to get after the O-line and Caleb. Yeah, how about Josiah Stewart had one of the most gruesome wins in pass rushing I've ever seen. I mean, he injured Ikem Ekwonu, destroyed him. Like, I felt bad for Ekwonu, but it wasn't like a freak thing. Like, pure force from the rookie Josiah Stewart injured Ekwonu in that game. That was insane. I hope he's okay. But like that was brutal.
Yeah.
That was
Um,
brutal.
I agree with your sentiments about the run game. That's going to be, I know that when we preview that game, going to be something we talk heavily about because that is, the Bears defense struggles and they particularly struggle against the run. So this would be a really good time to get the run game going against Chicago. So fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed indeed.
Yep.
And then we got one more from our favorite cat with a fade, Zaylor
Mm-hmm.
Swift.
Yep. Thank
Thank
you.
you for the 2. Let Mevis Cook take the points. Yeah, if he wants to keep kicking, the ball through the uprights, I'm not going to complain.
Yeah.
So
Well,
appreciate you.
appreciate it. And before we head out of there, word from Sleeper, don't we?
Yes, we do. So you guys can get in on the action over at Sleeper. Link is in the description below. You'll get a 100% bonus match up to $100 using my code JKB, and you'll get a $20 free entry. No deposit needed. I don't know what a deposit is, but I know what a deposit is. So you don't need a deposit to use the $20 free entry. But that's going to do it. So we really do appreciate you guys, and we'll be
Yeah.
back Friday.
We will. I live in Chicago, so there might be something going on Saturday night. I don't know. I'm waiting to get told if there is, but I'll see some people. I'm not going to go to the game, unfortunately. I'm going to watch the game with my 94-year-old Bears fan grandfather because I don't know when the next time we'll be able to watch a Rams Bears playoff game is. Like they haven't met in the playoffs since 1985. So like this is a very rare playoff matchup. So I'm gonna go watch it with him instead of going to the game. So make sure to hit me up on Twitter if you're gonna be in town. But guys, as always, if you like what we hear, what you hear, right now, you can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter/X at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. We are also both on Instagram. And guys, we will be back Friday night to preview our divisional round matchup against the Chicago Bears. But until then, as always, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.